Welcome to episode 211 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the status quo for now edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host. I'm with my co-host, the iRacing Indy 500 champion, a computer genius, a gentleman, a scholar, and doing the show from the road this week. His name is Josh Devine. What's going on, man?
Doing great, Phil. Of course, on the road this week, but a lot to go over this past weekend, and especially IndyCar finally back on track. Of course, with Joe Newering there. NASCAR, status quo is still the same with rules changes in Cup and everything there. Phoenix still being Phoenix, and a lot of stuff in Formula One. Of course, for me, iRacing ran the wet weather update this past weekend, so definitely ran that a bunch. I recorded one on stream just there, so you can go look on that, but we'll talk about that later. Lots to talk about there, but ready to get into it.
Absolutely. IndyCar with their season opener at St. Petersburg. The Honda Grand Prix was dominated by Chevys, specifically Penske Chevys. Joseph Newgarden getting his 30th career win, getting one away from Dario Franchitti in terms of total wins, tying Rick Mears, who is basically what he is. He's Rick Mears 2.0. We'll get into the podium and what we saw this past weekend leading into the thermal all-star race for $1 million or whatever. Phoenix was a Toyota benefit both days, but it was Christopher Bell getting the win in the Cup Series after teammates dominated, or corporate teammates dominated, and Tyler Reddick and Dennis Hamlin. Dennis Hamlin going and spinning out basically changed the race. What would have probably been the race result a bit. Chris Bell's car was the fastest car basically at the end in that long run by far, and he got away. And so that's what happened with that. We'll get into Xfinity, which saw Chandler Smith win for the first time for the Gibbs team. In the process, wreck John Hunter Nemechek on one of the restarts, so that was something. Not much action there. It was a wreck with that, and then there was Justin Allgaier running away with the race, only to cut a tire down and slam the fence on the white flag, or with 2 laps to go, or something like that, which led to Chandler Smith getting the victory. Fish Lips doing his usual crap. Behind him, a little bit more action and interest in the fact that Ollie Bierman, the F2 driver, had to make his Formula One debut, only had 1 hour of practice and qualifying to get used to a Formula One car before getting into the race. And but he finished in the points and did a very good job, represented himself very well. And so, it's a brother. Wow, okay. I didn't know maybe that name sounds familiar. But, you read lit. But we'll get into all the F1 whatever. It's typical crap. The Red Bull drama, Red Fool drama continues there. So we'll talk about it as well. In the roundup, we have F2 and F1 Academy last week. The Gator Nationals took place for the NHRA. Indy next. The Daytona 200 also took place last week. And then we'll preview Supercross. It's becoming a Jet Lawrence show, which isn't all that shocking. Jet Lawrence has won 2 consecutive races, and so now he's getting ready and getting fired up for possibly another title. We'll also talk about Cadillac leaving Chip Ganassi Racing, And at the end of this year, what that means for Ganassi, who they might go and partner with. And then with that news, it's a lead into the 12 Hours of Sebring. We will preview the other major race that's taking place, which is Bristol back on the concrete. And they'll have Cup and Trucks this coming weekend there. Josh will let us know all things going on in the world of iRacing in a sim segment, along with Racing in the Rain with the new additions there to the game. And then we'll close the deal. So yeah, let's start, of course, with IndyCar, the Grand Prix of St. Petersburg. My fantasy team was an absolute nightmare. Just a word of advice: never pick Roman Grosjean for your fantasy team ever. Just for your own health. I picked Marcus Armstrong. He crashed. Roman Grosjean had issues. And then I don't remember who my other two drivers were, but they did not fare well. I'm pretty certain that that the other two drivers were not good either. But I'm just going to check that here for the Firestone. I said Honda Grand Prix, Firestone Grand Prix. Oh, yeah, I did great. Marcus Ericsson, Marcus Armstrong, Rinus VeeKay, and Roman Grosjean. Rinus VeeKay was the only person that actually did anything. I picked first and second correctly for the podium of Joseph Newgarden and Pato O'Ward. Did not pick Scott McLaughlin. I had Colton Herta. And for fastest lap, I was off by nearly 2 miles an hour. But I've been way off the other way. So, so not a good start to the season for me in terms of fantasy there for IndyCar. But for Joseph Newgarden, definitely a great start to his 2024 campaign. Dominant performance to get his 30th career IndyCar Series win, and won by 7, nearly 8 seconds. You had John Bon Jovi there. You had Brett Michaels. You had basically I fucked the 80s at St. Petersburg, and then Joseph Newgarden was hearkening back to a guy that dominated in the 80s and 70s and even into the early 90s, and the guy that he basically is the second coming of, and Rick Mears, or broke a tie with Rick Mears, actually. So yeah, they're tied at 29 now, so he's at 31 win away from tying Dario Franchitti. So that you're getting into some elite category there, territory. He led 92 of the races, 100 laps, only 3 leaders through the day, three actual cautions. One was for Armstrong in turn 10. Stingray Robb went off course in turn 1, and then Linus Lundqvist had issues in turn 10 as well. They ran the last, nearly 29 laps under green, it looks. Yeah, last 29 laps under green. So, Newgarden over O'Ward, McLaughlin, Will Power gives Chevy the top 4 and Penske 3 out of the top 4. Colton Herta, the first Honda so 3 Hondas after that. Herta, Palou, Alex Palou started 13th, finished 6th. Rosenquist, who started on the front row, finished 7th. Alexander Rossi, Scott Dixon, and aforementioned Rinus VeeKay. Root Beer Floathead, in the first race for AJ Foyt Racing, having the Penske support, gets an 11th place finish. Kyle Kirkwood, 18th to 12th. Ilott, 13th, filling in for David Malukas, who got injured on a mountain bike. He might be filling in at Thermal, still to be determined on that one. I mean, there is no interference in terms of date clashes with WEC, so we'll see what happens with that. Kiffin Simpson, the rookie for Ganassi, 14th. Pietro Fittipaldi from tailback to 15th. Green Rehall, terrible weekend. It's a terrible weekend for the Rahal team in general. Because I mean, Lundgaard was the last car in the lead lap. So yeah, it was a bad weekend. Blomqvist, Canapino, Harvey, Lundgaard were rounded out the top 20 and all the cars on the lead lap. Rasmussen, Braun, Lundqvist, Grosjean, who fell out of the race, Ericsson fell out of the race, Stingray Robb, and then Marcus Armstrong. So yeah, 3/4 of my team fell out of the race. That was great. But yeah, Joseph Newgarden, I mean, it's typical St. Petersburg, Josh. I mean, usually whoever qualifies up front stays up front. There isn't really a whole lot of action. It is a tough place to pass even on a good day, but when you have somebody who's that locked in, who's that hooked up, it's going to be very difficult for anybody to get past. And Joseph Newgarden is very determined, came in with the motivation about fixing his qualifying, and especially on road and street circuits. This first half of the season is road and street circuit heavy, and the second half of the season is very oval heavy. And if there is one person who's really, really good at ovals, it's Joseph Newgarden. So the notion is, if he can get off to a hot start this year, winning or getting good finishes, getting his wins when he can, the second half of the season lays out very, very well for the Tennessee native. And he gets to finish the season in Nashville, albeit on the super speedway, which rolls right in his wheelhouse. And it could be a championship possibility. I mean, only one race in, but Chevy definitely established a lot of momentum in the race, with the kind of power they're going to bring to the table this year. 6 out of the top 10 finishers. Rinus VeeKay showing a lot of strength this weekend, just outside of the Fast Six. You had the two Penske cars outside of the Fast Six, but they move up and make hay during the race. And Pato O'Ward getting those podiums. I mean, he hasn't won in a while, but I think that podium or that win is coming sooner rather than later. Maybe it comes at Thermal in a couple weeks' time, but Joseph Newgarden definitely set a tone to start 2024 with that dominant performance at St. Pete, Josh.
Yeah, it's a dominating performance for sure for Joe New there. And yeah, I think they said on the broadcast the last time that he had won the opening race at St. Petersburg, he went on to win on the championship back in 2019. I think he also did win there in 2020 when that was the year-end race there because of COVID, but I think he wasn't the champion that year anyways. But I mean, yeah, the performance he put on this past weekend, yeah, pure dominance. Something that we expect of a driver like him. But of course, been in past year or so has been struggling a bit on road and street courses, qualifying as well, and road and street courses not up to par, and really put a lot of focus on that this offseason. They made a lot of headlines about, or talk about him unfollowing everybody on social media just to display the focus that he needs for this year and the lack of distractions. So that's kind of interesting to think about in terms of how focused and determined he is to go out and add a third title to his mantle for his career in IndyCar. So he's already started out the year good as well, having been part of the winning team for the Rolex 24 with Porsche Penske. Um, back in January. So already starting off the year with a good start with wins in that and here in St. Petersburg. So yeah, Joseph Newgarden dominating throughout, and really Team Penske dominating as well with McLaughlin putting in a solid weekend, getting a podium. Will Power finishing right behind him there in fourth. So just a really good weekend for Chevy overall. With Pato O'Ward also getting second there. So I mean, Newgarden dominating, which is typical really of this, racetrack. Of course, last year with all the crashing that happened throughout the race and the drama. That didn't really happen. So more kind of reverting back to the mean for what we expect for St. Petersburg. So yeah, not really surprising, but I still thought there were some interesting things that took place throughout this race that kind of made it somewhat compelling. Of course, you had fuel saving, which I think a lot of people complained about. I saw online just how they're really fuel saving than racing per se, kind of similar to how the first, couple stages in the Daytona 500 were there. But I mean, it's part of it. Racing, it's part of racing. You have to fuel save in order to get to the end. And people talking about, should they lengthen the number of laps? Should they reduce the amount of fuel in the tank to force them to race and all that and everything? So yeah, I mean, I have no problem with it. It's just innate product of the game, and you're going to get that at a track where or a circuit where things tend to get strung out there, as they did with Newgarden, who essentially when he was in the lead, no one could really touch him. I think maybe at the beginning of the race with Felix Rosenquist was in his tow for the first handful of laps there, but he slowly just got away from him there and really didn't have any challenge up front and everything. And the only guy that led significant amount of laps was Christian Lundgaard, of course, with the offset strategy at the beginning of the race. Cut down a tire, had a flat tire, had to go back to the pits, and ended up starting the race half lap down, and then they were able to kind of use some strategy to get up front and everything. But even then, offset strategy, they're not able to challenge Joseph Newgarden there. So I mean, it's a typical race here for St. Petersburg. Great weather and everything to start out the year. So obviously, Penske coming out saying, "Hey, we're here. We're challenging for the championship this year." Obviously, last year Alex Blow came out and was that guy. So we'll see. It's only the first race of the year, so we'll see how that goes. But definitely solid performance from them. Some of the Hondas as well. Especially Rosenquist with how Meyer Shank has performed over the last couple of years, actually putting in a solid performance as well, running up front. So we're glad that IndyCar is back, and you'll have to wait a couple weeks until the next event, though. But still a good event to have, to open the year.
Shows how deep the field is too. The way qualifying was, that session was one of the more competitive sessions I've seen it in IndyCar qualifying. I mean, there was definitely some instances of guys getting held up, even with the way they broke things up. But for the likes of Rossi, he was able to fade that still. I just saw through the notes that I think it was on the socials, Joey Barnes, that Roman Grosjean, on top of ending up falling out of the race, he was part of Linus Lundqvist's issues, avoidable contact. So it is, on top of not picking Roman Grosjean for fantasy, just assume that he's going to cause a yellow or be a yellow. That's just a guarantee. It doesn't matter what he drives. He's just he's a rolling yellow flag. It wasn't enough he tried to go and off himself at freaking Bahrain with the fireball. Now he still has to go and crash in everybody too. But we'll see what he does at Sebring this weekend, which we'll talk about later, since Lamborghini will be making their IMSA debut this coming weekend for the 12 Hours of Sebring. But I mean, for Honda, a lot left to be desired. I mean, the Rosenquist got snookered on the start in the Bon Jovi car. I don't have the song lyrics in my head, or else I could come up with some bad pun. They were making bad enough puns with all of Bon Jovi's music, and then if you add Bret Michaels crap, you'd have some really cheesy '80s puns there. But Kirkwood, somebody that's left wanting after, a guy who's really good at street courses. Both of his wins last year were on street courses. Only qualifies 18th, and that basically screwed his whole entire day. Ray Hall Racing was never had anything the whole weekend. I mean, Lundgaard got into the fast 12, but just on the, and then ended up being on the edge. So didn't get anything out of that. His teammates were nowhere. I mean, Colton Herta was the Honda representative. He was the only one that really kind of showed pace at times, but he couldn't stay with the Penske's and he couldn't stay with Joseph Newgarden. Alex Palou was garbage in qualifying and made up for it in the race. I mean, when you look at the battle, they said it in the radio broadcast that when you look at the battle after Joseph Newgarden, it was really interesting. I mean, you had 5 drivers separated by less than 4 seconds. And then if you go further, from second all the way to 10th was only separated by 11. Less than 11 seconds or whatever. So, I mean, or just under 12 seconds, I mean. So, there was actually an interesting race. It was just behind Joseph Newgarden. But, that's something, Penske has had issues with pace on the road and street circuits at times. So, I mean, for them to come out and basically dominate McLaughlin and Power, not get out of Q2 or the Fast 12, I mean, and then to move up the way they did was a big deal. And Chevrolet, I mean, Dixon got out of there unscathed relatively, but he's already lost. What is it? He's 4 points behind or 6 points behind Alex Palou, and he's 32 points behind Joseph Newgarden to start the year. So it's a huge gap, the way the IndyCar points are. So it'll be a while before they have another points race, but work to do for the Honda teams in general if they want to respond to what Penske brought to the table this past weekend. He talked about the Chevys and how they stood out. I mean, Pato O'Ward, McLaren held up the fort for them as per usual, but still searching for that elusive win. The Penske guys looking like they're ready for bear in 2024. The rookies definitely had a mixed bag the whole weekend. I think the other main piece that came out of the weekend was Michael Andretti kind of going off script and basically going scorched earth. Not really, but, it's like Michael Andretti is like, you know what, if F1 and FOM think that I'm not worthy, well, I'll also go after this trillionaire too. Which, to be fair, at the end of the day, the way that Penske has run IndyCar after they got through the COVID couple of years, meaning 20 and 21, you have to wonder what the game plan is. It doesn't look like there's any real progression, upward mobility going on. There's no promotion of these drivers. There's the same car that they're going to run for at least another 3 more years. the hybrid technology, that this big to do about hybrid technology. The testing was not like, they only focus. I think two teams really did most of the testing. I think it was Penske and Ganassi, and then they don't have it. They won't have it until sometime the middle of the season. I mean, there's a lot left to be desired. I mean, I mean, it's honestly the best product in American motorsports in terms of, quote, major league motorsports. Or I'll put it a different way, because there's other major league series that we don't see unless you're going to go and get streaming services, period. Um, the series that we get somewhat available on TV, that's shown on weekends. That's really, generally, you're going to get the IndyCar product's going to be closer than most. But unfortunately, I mean, Michael Andretti said his piece, and a lot of what he said was true. And I think that's, I guess, the reality of the world is Roger Penske's been more interested in nickel and diming things with IndyCar, and then just making more upgrades at Indy. And at the end of the day, Indy's the month of May. And then he's the same guy who's a multi-billionaire, but then he's wanting to set up charters in IndyCar and make it so that there's most of the field is guaranteed at Indy, which literally was what the IRL was when they first started, which and essentially was the IRL, which was a precursor of what this series is, which was guaranteeing spots. You still have this leader circle thing, which they've pinched off money on to go the fact is, if they didn't have the leader circle, Dale Coyne wouldn't be around, probably Ed Carpenter Racing wouldn't be around. And you look at some of these multi-car teams, I think Ray Hall would only be a 2-car team. And trying to go through, probably AJ Foyt's team would be a 1-car team. Et cetera, et cetera. Ganassi wouldn't be putting 5 cars out there full time. Maybe 3 with 1 part-time car, or 2 with one part-time car, or something like that. Penske wouldn't matter. Andretti has always figured out a way to put out cars, but this year he's downsized. So in all of that, I mean, I read that and I was like, wow, that's pretty fiery. But then I see where he's coming from as a guy who's owned a team for 20 plus years, a guy who is a mogul, someone who is involved in God knows how many different racing series, just like Roger Penske, just like Chip Ganassi. But you can see the contrast there. You had Michael Andretti going one way, you had Chip Ganassi going the other, and that's where you see the disconnect that exists, one of the many disconnects that exists in IndyCar, which is why we are where we are with it. But what were your thoughts, Josh, on what Michael said this past weekend at St. Petersburg in regards to the series and Penske itself?
I mean, yeah, I agree with a lot of what Michael Andretti said there. I think he made a lot of valid points that, are hard to refute. And I think, with the direction that Penske has gone, since he acquired the series, I mean, has it been stabilized? Yeah, it's stable, but is it really growing in a sense where we can say, okay, this series is, getting back to where it was back in the old days? Not so much. I mean, I think maybe the ticket sales, I think, seem to improve. We see reports where, oh, well, this race, like St. Petersburg, was up 16% year over year from where it was a year ago, or, things like that, or the Indy 500, I think this year the Indy 500 is starting to get close to a sellout, although it never truly is. But certainly they've sold out as many tickets as they have up to this point as they did back for the 100th running, if I understand correctly. So, obviously there's momentum there. So there's bits and pieces of that, especially with the in person sales. But then I always think like if it weren't for the Indianapolis 500, like what is IndyCar? And is it is this series ever relevant outside on a national basis, or at least on a motorsport basis or sports basis? Like, is it really relevant outside of the Indy 500? I think the answer to that is no. It isn't, and which sucks because we talk about the series. We like the series. It's a great for the racing itself. It's a great series. It's just everything around it is mismanaged for the most part, and I think it speaks volumes when Andretti he said that the owners laughed the idea away of the charter system that they were talking about, which they stealing that one from NASCAR and stuff. So that's pretty telling of the kind of the forward leadership from Penske's group and everything, which I think they need to be doing more and everything. And you brought up earlier Bon Jovi, Brett Michaels, and stuff, and great artists and stuff. But I mean, who listens to them these days? Who are the people listening to these days? And I can say that those guys aren't really relevant culturally wise in terms of like who's the big name artist and everything. And obviously, later in the year they'll have the Iowa race and they'll have a concert there as well. And I don't have the artist list on hand, but um, at least they could start there with getting more relevant artists. I mean, they could try to shoot for the stars and get somebody like Taylor Swift, which probably would never happen, but somebody like that, immediately inject IndyCar into the culture. So could start there. But there's that. There's the car, which hasn't been changed very much. The chassis is the same since it debuted in 2012. The body's gone over updates, with the original body with that had the Kardashian bumpers, the aerial kits from 2015 through 17, and then come back to what we had in the 90s with the current aero kit, IR18 aero kit that we currently have, which it's a nice looking car. Hey, let's be honest, it's a good car, but it's been the same. Everything's been the same for the most part. There haven't really been any true technological advances in the series, and that's kind of where the question is, where's the where are we going with this, and where's the growth going to come from? And they talk about wanting a third engine manufacturer, and Michael brought up that, well, we need to figure out a way to get not just a third guy, but also multiple engine manufacturers, which if they update the chassis to where there's compatibility with IMSA, then you would see multiple growth of engine manufacturers in the series, and being able to run different manufacturers beyond Chevy and Honda, possibly also save costs, especially with the programs that run in IMSA and in IndyCar, with obviously Andretti is part of that with Wayne Taylor racing with Andretti. You have Chip Ganassi running an IMSA program, Penske now running an IMSA program once again there, and then they have the IndyCar program. Will probably make a lot of sense to have a car that's somewhat compatible where they can take that engine, which is a hybrid engine in the GTP class, and then put that in the IndyCar and run that, and then you have a hybrid engine in both that has a lot of visibility among fans and among television viewers. So that would be one way to look at it. Also the fact that the final race, of course, with Nashville, they promised the street course, and they were very dependent on the street course, happening, and then it didn't because I guess the Tennessee Titans, those mayonnaise eating bastards over there in Nashville decided to build a new stadium. So, that obviously they're blew up the IndyCar plans because the course goes in circles around part of the grounds of that area, and now they can't do that, so they have to go out to Nashville Super Speedway. It was actually outside of the Nashville city limits course, and run over there, which could be, I mean, it's not a bad racetrack either, but it's not what the sponsors and everybody were promised. And there's been a lot of criticism there because it feels like the promotion of that and the series promotion of that was very dependent on that. And then when they backed out and are doing the oval now, the sponsors and everything that was so dependent on that feel like they got bait and switched, and now the teams, it was kind of put on the teams to kind of fix all of that, or try to make the best out of that situation, when really they feel like that maybe the series should have done a better job of trying to foster the sponsors and all that, and help them with that change over there. So um, yeah, there's a lot of criticism. I think it's well deserved, and yeah, I mean Michael Andretti's saying, he's basically getting rejected by F1 because they don't want him over there. Well, he's probably just gonna be like, "Shit, hold my beer. I'm gonna go and buy IndyCar," because clearly he's challenging Penske. He's like, "Well, Penske doesn't want to spend the money, then sell the series." And it's literally what he said. So Michael was like, history here, and as much as Penske with the Andretti family. So, why not Michael on the series or something like that? So that would be funny to see and everything. And certainly, going back to those cringy, which, those commercials that IndyCar has, which are very cringy, with the Butterball and with him and Ryan Hunter Ray, certainly Michael Andretti did not forget the heat. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of criticism that I think well deserved and everything. And certainly, yeah, I think there's certainly, and while we like the racing, there certainly has to be progression in terms of what we see, and I guess the outreach to have growth in terms of fans and viewers around the world.
Yeah, and it makes sense that they were sponsored by Butterball, since Michael's body has turned into a Butterball turkey ever since he stopped racing over 20 years ago. But he bangs the Playboy Playmate of the Year, so I guess it doesn't really matter. I mean, you also look at that. I mean, it's a great point you made about like the selling the series point that he made, because Roger Penske is in his 80s. It's a problem that NASCAR has as well with ownership, which is why so many people make such a big deal about Justin Marks and all that he's doing, because literally he's the only young owner there is in NASCAR. Tony, to a point, but let's be fair, now he spends more time drag racing than he does caring about his cup team. So, I mean, most of the owners are not young in NASCAR. In IndyCar, it's the same thing. Penske and Ganassi are old. And Chip, of course, has been a fat fuck for decades. So you can only imagine, outside of him being filthy rich, that probably helps with some of the health issues he probably has. Then you have, I mean, Andretti, of course, but you go look at some of these other owners, and are they like elite, elite teams? The only one that's an elite team is McLaren, which of course is got what is it, Middle East investment. Zach Brown, who's in the same age range as Michael Andretti, et cetera, et cetera. And then after you get past those four teams, how many of those teams are really relevant in terms of what they're doing on a week-to-week basis in IndyCar? There really isn't there. Graham, what is it, Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan, all of them are old. Bobby has already said to Graham, it's going to be your team, and it's going to be whatever Mike Lanigan's son, it's going to be their team. And I'll assume that Harry, Letterman will be part of it too, because of course it's his dad's thing. So that'll be the next generation. So they're moving towards that thing. You have to look at, there has to be a plan in place for the future that actually makes sense. They waited forever to put out a new car years ago. They drove those Dallara toilets around for God knows how many years with those shitty, annoying, normally aspirated and Honda engines for years. They're going to run at the rate they're going. They're going to run Honda out of the series, and they're going to somehow or another decide that NASCAR makes sense, which it doesn't. I don't care what they come up with. They'd have to. There'd have to be hybrid. There'd have to be some sort of electrification, whatever, for Honda to really consider it. I mean, but that's to be determined, I guess, in terms of what Honda's going to do. But the GTP and using the engines and that balance, like the BOP and like the convergence formula, you look at how many different manufacturers are involved in WEC, in the hypercar category and the IMSA GTP category, and it's a who's who of motorsports. It covers everything. It covers every area, really, and covers multiple countries too. So why wouldn't you do that? It almost goes back to what years and years ago when they made the DW12. And I think Robin Miller, the late Robin Miller, others were talking about it. They could have went with a 2.0 liter 4-cylinder with a turbo, and I don't know how many different manufacturers have that, or 1.6 liter 4-cylinder, and they could have used that as a baseline with a single turbo, and how many manufacturers they could have gotten that way. They didn't. They made this specific engine, 2.2 liter, which was with however many turbos you wanted. Chevy went with 2, Honda went with 1. Honda eventually is like, no, that doesn't work, so we'll go with 2. And that's what the formula has been for all these years. The chassis has changed, as Josh mentioned, but we are where we're at. And this is going to be the formula that we have for another 2 years. At least, or 3 years, really, because it's only one race into this season. So a lot to look at, a lot to be talked about. I mean, relevance in mainstream media. The only way that they're going to be relevant in mainstream media, honestly, is if a woman driver comes along, which there aren't any women drivers that are going to come along right now in IndyCar or in Indy Next, unless Jamie Chadwick pulls one out of her ass. I mean, that she had a rough year last year. If she can come up with a much better year this year, who knows? Because it isn't going to be the other one, because she's an Instagram influencer and a knob gobbler. And then the other thing would be Miles Rowe, which would be because of the Penske connection, because of all these different things, the fact that Foyt is basically the Penske junior team now, which is, there's a lot of irony in that, but the fact that basically Root Beer Floathead will be hopefully removed from the grid in for Miles Rowe, that will be a net positive, but then the expectations on him are going to be ridiculous, considering that the Foyt team has been a joke for God knows how many years, and they haven't won a race in a decade, over a decade. And so, I mean, what is saying that they're going to be relevant or be fast enough to go and carry Miles Rowe, or Miles Rowe be able to carry it the other way? It has a lot of the same feelings as Bubba when he was driving for Mr. the King. So, and we know how Bubba gets treated and is thought of in NASCAR fandom circles, not taking into account what having Sarah and Phil a couple weeks ago, and us being, at least logical and knowledgeable and intelligent people, in terms of that. All right, we talked about Bubba Wallace. He had an interesting weekend. This weekend was fast in practice. Didn't work out so well in the race for a while. The other thing, you brought up the Iowa race weekend. Luke Combs and Eric Church are on Saturday. Kelsey Ballerini and Post Malone are on Sunday for Iowa Speedway. So talking about relevance, those are all three country music, relevant country music stars, and then Post Malone, who's just relevant because he looks like a billboard of graffiti walking. So he has good music, I think. I don't know. Don't know that I've listened to Post Malone, so whatever. I know he smokes a lot of weed. We'll get yeah. That's the Not even I always remember the video, the road I'm on with the Three Doors Down, because Tony and Dale Jr. are in it, and that's what got me as a fan of Three Doors Down, and I still listen to that song, but didn't connect with the Post Malone deal. But the Shriners Children's 500 at Phoenix International Raceway, uh, typical Phoenix Boar Fest. There was not really a whole hell of a lot that came out of this deal. There was a new short track rules package that I think tires made a difference, in a sense that on initially early in the run, having new tires made a difference. But track position after a while was the name of the game. It was a Toyota benefit basically the whole weekend. Ford struggled. Chevy struggled, to be fair, as well. The Hendrick cars dropped like an anchor late, but then I think a lot of what happened was determined after Denny Hamlin spun out coming off of a yellow. He spins out a few laps later and basically drops it in the lap of the back end of the lead lap cars that had pitted. That switched the field around. That turned a lot of things. You add also the notion of cars that probably weren't as good early in a run. They didn't fire off very well, with cars that were good that way. And then put that on restarts, and there will always be chaos because of how the stupid idiot that decided to pave the whole entire damn place. So people are going and driving basically on a pit road on the apron, and then you have somebody on the fence. So of course you're going to have a convergence coming out of what is now turn 2. And then you also have convergence coming out of 4 with the weird angle. But they ruined that racetrack. It's the same kind of shitty racing, except they just paved the whole entire place at Phoenix. But Christopher Bell goes and leads 50 laps in the race. He wins the second stage. Tyler Reddick was the early dominator, along with his team owner. One of his team owners, Dennis Hamlin, who won the pole, in a car that looked a lot like Todd Bodine's what do you call Pillsbury car from back in the day, because it was just basically red with like white and blue writing on it. I have to look up that car. It was the old CC Welliver Bush car before he went with Fiddle Faddle. That's what that car reminded me of. But it was those guys, and I mean, if you take Keebler Gibbs, Martin Truex Jr., the only driver that wasn't a Toyota that led the race was Todd Gilliland, who was doing an alternative pit strategy, trying to hope for a caution. And he was the only non-Toyota that led in yesterday's race. So, and then, I mean, you got you got, I mean, some people who scored not a there's yeah, you had Blaney score points in both stages, Truex scored points in both stages, Reddick, Hamlin, William Byron, and Chase Elliott. That's the only thing that saved their day. And then Eric Jones, who was pissed off at Chase Briscoe. But we'll go through the results here. Christopher Bell gets his, 7th career Cup Series victory. Christopher Buescher finished second for RFK. Both those teams were involved in the test last November, so it isn't all that shocking that they were up there. Keebler Gibbs finishes third. I'm not sure if that is his best career finish or not, but probably pretty close. Brad Keselowski, fourth. Ryan Blaney, the defending series champion, finishes fifth. All four of those five guys were in the 13th to 18th range. So, I mean, they were able to make the track position work, but I think that long run really fell into their laps there. Ross Chastain, who was the most recent Phoenix winner in November. Truex, who tried to gamble and it didn't work, was able to work his way all the way back up to 7th. Arizona's Michael McDowell finishes 8th. Chase Briscoe 9th, and Tyler Reddick 10th. Dennis Hamlin spun out, came all the way back to 11th. Gagson 12th. You got Atlanta winner Daniel Suarez in 13th. Vegas winner Kyle Larson in 14th. Carson Hocevar 15th place finish, qualifying in the top 10. So credit to him. Bubba started 22nd, finished 16th. You got Gilliland, Will Byron, Chase Elliott, Alex Bowman rounding out your top 20. Richard was the last car on the lead lap in 21st. Kyle Busch had an absolute nightmare day, whether it was on pit road, whether it's not on pit road. He spun out. Definitely not one of his better days for sure, and it's been a rough start to the year, especially on pit road for the RCR team. Yeah, so Eric Jones, yeah, I mentioned him. He finished 31st. Gumby Cindric was involved in a wreck with Bald Spot Dylan and Derek Kraus. Derek Kraus and Dylan both were able to go and drive on, but Cindric finished tailback. After that, they didn't have a caution until for an incident until lap 197 for Kyle Busch's spin, and that caution led into the big. That led in. Well, they say cautions breed cautions. They had two more cautions soon after, which was the multi-car incident, which took out Joey Logano. That was triggered by John Hunter Nemechek. And then Denny Hamlin spinning with Tyler Reddick there. So Christopher Bell had a great car late. He had a great long run car, and he paid that off. So did Buescher. Gibbs had issues on pit road, or else maybe we're talking about Keebler Gibbs with his first career Cup Series victory. But honestly, I kind of had a feeling. I mean, we didn't make our picks that way, but as things kind of started to go, and then especially after, I picked Hamlin actually, but still, I kind of felt like a Toyota benefit was coming, and as the weekend went on, and it paid off that way. But Christopher Bell closes, which is something that he's becoming the new. I think he's very early to say it. He's won at 7 different racetracks for 7 wins. and he's got that kind of mentality, that closer's mentality. So that was one of Kevin Harvick's nicknames. I think Christopher Bell is kind of taking on characteristics of Kevin Harvick that way. He needs to become a little more consistent at some of his weak spots. There's things he can definitely clean up, road racing. But Christopher Bell is definitely a guy who you have to look at. He's put himself in the final four last couple of years. He is a factor in the de facto leader at Joe Gibbs Racing, in terms of what he brings to the table.
Yeah, it's interesting with Christopher Bell because yeah, he's been in the championship for the last 2 seasons, and everything. But then you go back to the Netflix special, and a lot of the writers there had kind of written him off, and he was very he's a quiet guy, but he makes a lot of bold statements in terms of how he drives, and we've seen that from him over the years. We've seen him do that. Quite a few times in his career, and it's actually an interesting comparison because look at what he did at the Roval a few years ago, winning there to stay alive in the championship four, or in the round going into the round of eight, and then that win at Martinsville to put him in the championship four, and then last year winning at Homestead in the closing stages to put himself in the championship four, and then today or on Sunday, going and taking the final 40 laps and winning here at Phoenix, kind of put a bold statement. Not only that, but also I think the second largest margin of victory in the Gen 6 or Gen 7 era, and I think he's the other race was also his victory there. So where he had the largest margin of victory. So he's had quite a few wins here to start out his career that kind of go in that mold of being a closer type of driver here. So, yeah, I had a great long run car for him, and deferring pit strategies. Yeah, I think with the cautions after the second stage, kind of put teams in a different position and everything, and that kind of led to the field sort of flipping there. But yeah, Denny Hamlin spun out and probably had a chance to win, but finishes 11th there, and led 68 laps, but doesn't have too much to show for that. Same thing for Tyler Reddick, who's also kind of involved in that one. He won stage one there, so should have been more for Tyler Reddick there as well. So 23-11 didn't really have the most solid weekend there. So yeah, I mean for Bell, it's a big win for him early in the season. So get that out of the way, and they can focus on getting better throughout the year and possibly capturing the regular season title. So that's very important as well. So you have that Keselowski, finally having a good week. After kind of having a rough start to the year, obviously, but now finally kind of breaking through and getting top five actually here. So, yeah, that's a good start there and everything. I think another driver that kind of really surprising right now is Noah Gragson, who he was in the top 10 for a good amount of this race. Ended up falling out into the 12th position. Had a good start in seventh. So, I think he had a really good race and has had a couple of solid races to start the year. With last week's effort in Las Vegas. So he could quietly become a contender as we go out throughout the rest of the year. Stuart Haas, of course, having a better start to the year overall. It seems like, but that pairing with him and Drew Blickensderfer certainly could be good for him, and certainly seems like to be a lot more focused, a lot more refined as a professional this season. So that could be a good pairing there. You brought up Hendrick, who at one point Byron Elliott top 10 both stages. Alex Bowman was there as well as a contender. Didn't get stage points, but he was in the top 10 for portions of the race there. End up all three of those cars outside of the top 10, 18, 19, and 20 there. So, that's concerning there, but I think it's also just bad luck of the draw there in terms of pitch strategy and things, how, the race ended up shaping out and everything. So, Yeah, I think another guy that obviously we talked about him you know, beginning of the season, Kyle Busch. We remember his calm, cool, and collected self in Daytona and Atlanta, but the last couple of weeks they ran into issues. Made a pit crew change this week, but still didn't get them the right result. Ended up having a bad race. They spun out, and he finishes first car lap down there. So, yeah, definitely for Kyle Busch, not the weekend that he wanted here at Phoenix, and I think another guy as well that didn't have a good weekend, Joe Logano, um, obviously wrecked out, but even before that, he was a lap down. So, uh, 22 is out to lunch this weekend in Phoenix. So, those two past champion drivers, clearly struggling, and maybe that's still part of the variance that we see with the next gen car where we haven't seen too much consistency, on a week to week basis. But I think as we go further along, we're going to see a little bit more consistency. Maybe not from those drivers, but certainly you're starting to kind of see who's able to finish in the top 10 on a weekly basis here. So yeah, this is a big win for Chris Bell, and he quietly, I think is a championship contender, and everything. So we'll see how he goes throughout the rest of the year. So. Yeah, I think the other big hot topic from this was the package for the Cup Series, which changed, but still ended up being kind of the same type of racing. Some people jogging it up to Phoenix style racing, not really translating that well since they reconfigured, repaved their racetrack in 2012, and still hasn't really, made any significant improvement to where we can see good racing. You have that the package itself not really doing that well because it needs more horsepower. There's the fine line of getting the downforce to be effective, and it seems like maybe the best course of action is just to raise the car some 4 inches off the ground, just so you don't have to worry about getting it to the right ride height to where you know if you get it low enough, you get make maximum downforce with the splitter and with the rear diffuser, and then if you raise it up, maybe you just eliminate those. So that was one thing that I saw from from a former engineer for Stuart Haas. So that was a interesting point made there. But the rule changes that NASCAR implemented to try to make things better didn't really make things too much better. But perhaps the jury's still out there with Phoenix kind of understanding that it's not really the best track for passing and whatnot, but maybe this package will have improvement here at upcoming tracks like Martinsville and Richmond, short tracks that certainly would benefit from a theoretical rules change to make short track racing better. So we'll see how that goes. But of course, this is also the place where the championship will be held in November. So the fact that we didn't really see a whole lot of action is concerning, but we'll go with it and continue to see how things go throughout the rest of the year. But um, yeah, I mean, jury's still out just a little bit. I think not sure how much is really going to change at Martinsville or Richmond, place like that, but certainly still a lot of things left to be desired in terms of getting the rules package right for short tracks for the next gen car.
And I mean, adding on to the point you made with an engineer going and talking about raising the car up, which I think over the years I've talked about, and I think we've discussed here ad nauseum. I mean, Dennis Hamlin also in his media, I think after winning the poll or whatever, at some point during the weekend said it would take one call, go and change the horsepower to 750, and and we could go and it'll probably help with certain issues that exist with the car. I mean, I subscribe to Matt Weaver on Twitter, and he's saying essentially it's a fundamental design flaw with the Gen 7 car, which, to be completely honest, it makes sense because it's an overrated GT3 car um, with the, with tube frame, we got tube frame chassis, whatever, but it's a GT3 car. Um, which is that meant GT3 cars are meant for road courses. It's why the whatever Garage 56 car was able to put respectable lap times down with all kinds of aerodynamic enhancements added, but then they took out tons of weight and all this other crap. But the fact of the matter is that car was relatively competitive at Le Mans. So the notion is if it could, if it's good on one of the greatest road courses in the world, it tells you all you need to know. It's a road racing based car because Jim France is a road racing guy. All these common manufacturers so that they have common parts is all fine and well, but the notion that you can't put in or implement changes because it's going to be such a cost, they never really thought about it. I mean, we can get into the whole thing about they didn't bother to take into account the issues with the crashing, and that's what ended up, retiring Kurt Busch, giving a lot of issues for other guys like Kevin Harvick. They never took that seriously. They hurried the car. There's different things that are wrong or had been wrong, but then there's other things that are good. So it's like, I mean, the car itself, SVG showed up off the street, off a plane from Australia, and went and beat the doors off of all these Cup guys. So that in essence, that also speaks to what kind of car it is. It's basically a V8 supercar, which, I think the V8 supercar product over the last few years has gone down in terms of competitiveness, in terms of, and the cost basis has gone up. So it's interesting how that all works out, but we'll see what happens. I mean, Bristol's this weekend. It's a bank track, so it'll probably be fine. The fall off with tires will mean with however many cautions they're going to have, they're going to keep on pitting. So they'll probably run out of tires this weekend if things go the way they do. Let me go back here. The points standings. Leaving Phoenix, no obvious penalties as of yet. I didn't hear anything this weekend, so Blaney, the points leader by 10 over Kyle Larson and Martin Truex Jr. William Byron is fourth. Tyler Reddick rounds out the top five. He's tied with Keebler Gibbs. Chastain and Hamlin, the best friends, are tied for seventh. William Clyde Elliott the second, ninth. Nacho Libre 10th. Kyle Busch, for all the craziness and nonsense that's gone on, he's 11th. Christopher Bell with his win moves up 9 places up to 12th. Alex Bowman, Darrell Walsh Jr., Gumby Cindric drops 4 positions to 15th. He's had a last couple of weeks has dropped anchor. And Christopher Buescher gained 7 spots to get to 16th. He's a point behind Gumby. It's a close race, actually, early on now, 4 races in. From 15th all the way to 21st, which is John Hunter Nemechek is only separated by 7 points. Brad Keselowski's is the next car outside of that. Corey LaJoie and Carson Hocevar are actually tied points wise. Gagson, they had that point penalty, so having to fade that, he's 26th right now, 14 points behind Hemrick. What is it? We have Ryan Preece is dead last. He's basically in the Chase Briscoe situation that happened, last year, where he lost a shit ton of points and has had bad luck and or no speed. And he was up there for a period yesterday during the pit strategy, but it wasn't enough. The caution never came out. You look at who else is down there. Josh Berry is had a nightmare start to his rookie season. Bald Spot Dylan continuing his stellar performance from last year, sandwiched by two rookies, and three rookies, adding Kaz Gralla and Ryan Preece. Joey Logano is 30th in points, and you think about how fast his car was at Daytona, and he had arguably the best car at the Daytona 500, and then he gets, turned into the fence, and literally that a chance to win a second Daytona 500, and now he's 30th in points. 50, what is it? He's at 51. He's 100 points behind his teammate. Ryan Blaney, so that's pretty crazy in 4 races. Already an average of 25 points a race less than his own teammate, but we know Joey Logano more than likely he'll win. He'll be okay, but it's kind of jarring to see a guy who's a multi-time champion in that spot. We'll go Xfinity, mentioned it earlier. I'm not even going to say the name. I refuse. I just refuse. It's stupid. The Xfinity 2 Series 200 at Phoenix sees Chandler Smith get his second career victory. Won stage 1. Cole Custer won stage 2. He, from the pole, finished second in stage 1. Those were 2 of the 3 main leaders of the race. Justin Allgaier being the other one. Wow. Frankie Muniz drove the hot chick Ford. And I know they showed him on camera because he was passing out or some shit and he got out of the car, but I don't know what the hot chick was. Maybe was it a movie? I have no idea. I didn't really pay attention because I couldn't take the announcing. Chandler Smith over Jesse Love, Sheldon Creed, Austin Hill, Cole Custer, your top 5. Shane Van Gisbergen and Brandon Jones, Buckshot Jones, my bad. Parker Kligerman, Sammy Smith, the defending race winner, and Anthony Alfredo, Fast Pasta, getting a top 10 for Hour Motorsport. Leland Honeyman getting an 11th for the for Young's Motorsport. So I mean, they've had a solid start to the year, to be fair. Yes, there was issues for some of these big drivers, so that also helped, but getting 11th place finishes for a small team like that is big. You got a couple of cars from Siegs, then you got BJ McLeod got a top 15, DGM there, Weatherman and Leitz, AJ Allmendinger a lap down in 18th. So Corey Heim started 3rd. I forget, he had I don't know if it was a loose wheel or some sort of hub issue that happened there. He was pretty fast. William Byron's car was not fast. He struggled all day. And Riley Herbst, I think, got involved in an incident that he was in the top 5, top 10 for a good amount of the day and then didn't have the finish to show for it. The nightmare season start for Josh Williams continues. But yeah, I mean, you look at this race was essentially determined on 2 wrecks. One was a restart wreck, which was triggered by a 3-wide with Chandler Smith going and turning John Hunter Nemechek, and that took out multiple cars. And then there was Justin Allgaier blowing a left rear tire, hitting the fence with a couple laps to go, and he had the race basically locked up. Those were the 2 main things that determined this finish. Chandler Smith having to explain away using up John Hunter Nemechek, to win the race, but it stayed with Gibbs. Even though their two of their three cars finished 31st and 32nd, they had two cars in the top three. So it's a track that Gibbs is dominant at. Their two regular drivers finished first and third. So I guess it's a net positive, but it's probably was an interesting meeting today at Gibbs Racing. Jesse Love, for as douchey as he was winning the ARCA championship and running over people like William Sawalich, he has shown to be very calm and very calculated to the point where he seems to be driving home these finishes as a rookie, which is great potential. I mean, we know that Jesse Love has been a talented driver. He won the West title a couple of times for McAnally. Goes and wins ARCA for Venturini. Aggressive, but he's showing a lot of maturity here early in his rookie season in Xfinity. The wheel and engineering car seems to be much faster this year in general. I don't know if it's strictly because of the driver, or they made other changes. I forget, but I think they have Danny Stockman there now too. That also might be part of it, but maybe Richard Childress just has given him better equipment. Creed pulls out a top 5 out of it, but he wasn't really up front. He didn't get any stage points. He was outside the top 10 for a good amount of the day. Hill getting a top 5 out of it, and then Custer had to battle back to get that top 5 because going into stage 3, I think whatever that set of tires they put on his car made him fall back. But he is a defending series champion. Top 5 finishes will do the job. The credit, I think, though, has to go to SVG. I mean, what is this, his 5th oval race? Or something like that. 4th, 5th oval race, whatever, counting the truck race. And, I mean, 2 of them are super speedways. This is essentially the second short track-ish, whatever, race that he's ever run on an oval. And he goes out there and it battles to get a 6th place finish. And the next race they're going to is Circuit of the Americas, a track that he has, of course, on the short course raced at before, and I'm sure on the sim raced the full circuit. Absolutely lands in the wheelhouse for Shane Van Gisbergen to get himself locked in to the playoffs early in the season and then get to learn more. I mean, although he's going to have to battle his teammate AJ Allmendinger there, but yeah, that was Gibbs' benefit at a track that Gibbs dominates at, Josh. But the Monday meeting definitely was interesting.
Yeah, I'm sure that Monday meeting's definitely interesting. With Chandler Smith, John Hunter. Obviously John Hunter not running for points, but still trying to get experience here, and everything. And I mean, Chandler Smith, got his first win of the year, which been knocking on the door. So the fact that he won isn't really surprising. But yeah, the wreck happening on the backstretch there and taking out a lot of good cars there. Not really how you want to go about doing things there, and in a way, kind of backdoored into this. Especially with Allgaier blowing a tire there at the end and wrecking out. So yeah, Allgaier. I mean, I think I picked him for this, but he would have been right, but obviously got taken out there at the end by his left rear tire, so that didn't happen. So, yeah, I mean that was a kind of a okay race there, and was definitely going to be a Gibbs benefit for sure until Allgaier, but then it didn't, and it ended up being a Toyota benefit. But yeah, that was kind of how that went. But yeah, that's the most surprising result there that I saw with SVG taking a 6th place finish there. So showing progress already for guy that's a rookie here in this series, and definitely in a good position going into Dakota in a few weeks there. So, they have a lot going for them. here in this series so far, which is a little bit surprising and a little bit unexpected. But yeah, SVG is obviously a talented driver here in this series, so maybe not really as surprising as what we think it is. But yeah, that's surprising there. With Sam Mayer, has not really had a good race season so far. He's finished poorly and hasn't had a win or top 10 yet, and crashed out in 3 out of the 4 races. So for a guy that made it to the final four last year, hasn't finished all that well to start the year, and certainly needs to be better. I think junior motorsports probably as a whole probably needs to be better as well. So that's a little bit surprising there that they haven't really picked up from where they were in 2022 or 23. So still looking for more there. I think William Byron here this weekend. Thought he would be an instant contender, but didn't land any laps at all. Finished 2-3 laps down. I think he was probably involved in that one wreck, but yeah, no. Well, it didn't say his racing reference does not have him listed here as involved in any incidents in the accidents, but still, kind of shocking that Cup driver in a Hendrick car goes out and finishes 3 laps down in a Xfinity race. So a little bit surprising there, but I think when you talked about Jamie Little and being able to listen to her play by play. I mean, when Allgaier spun out there at the end, didn't really say anything and let Joey Logano and Suarez kind of take over, which I guess real play-by-play announcer would probably have called that correctly and everything. And I mean, she's a good pit reporter. I think she's already does fine at that. Just let her be a pit reporter. Stop pushing her. I mean, I know she was there for different reasons because Adam Alexander couldn't be there for reasons for family reasons or whatever. But I think we have to stop this experiment and put in somebody that's actually good at play by play. And can't believe we have Jamie Little in the Truck Series mostly being and I guess here in Xfinity this past weekend being a announcer there. So find somebody else to do it because let her do the job that she knows how to do. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's not a thing about, downgrading. I mean, it's whatever history month or whatever. You got other things, but she's god awful. As a play by play announcer, she has the energy of a broom, and I mean it's. And I would give credence to the broom. I mean, listening to her call a race is atrocious. And I mean, whatever the combination, they're going to have this combination in a couple of weeks' time too. I don't mind Joey Logano. I mean, people hate Joey Logano just for the sake of his pizza face, just his voice, because he looks like Gilbert Gottfried, whatever. I mean, any number of things. There's plenty of things to hate about Joey Logano. I get it. I completely get it. But the guy knows his shit. He's a 2-time Cup Series champion. It isn't by accident. He leads Penske Racing. He's a leader with the Ford camp. He's earned that. He's went through it all. He's been the biggest thing since sliced bread. He has been basically on the cusp of not having a career anymore. And now he's a champion, he's one of the top level drivers. People are going to hate him anyway. He's good at what he does. He's good at racing. He's good at this announcing thing. He does have, his voice is there, but, he knows his stuff. It's not Harvick level, but then it's hard to do that. I think we're going to see how Harvick goes as the season goes on. If he finally just gets fed up with Clint and just nut punches him, which would be great. That would be better for some of these races. That would have been good, on Sunday. If he had just punched Clint in the nuts, that would have made it more entertaining. Because then you'd had Mike Joy having to call the fact that Clint Boyer's keeled over in a fetal position. That would have made up for the race. But, I mean, that announcing thing, Daniel Suarez, God bless, it's his second language. and he's announcing and he's been doing this, and he, for whatever reason, whether it's Fox, whether it's somebody that works with him or for him, thinks that it's a good idea for him to announce races. I disagree, because all he does is literally agree or say whatever Joey Logano said, except it's in a Mexican accent. And he says it so fast you can't understand half the shit he says. So I'm like, what the hell are you adding to this? You're an Xfinity champion. Can't you add anything to this? You won on a super speedway and you won on a road course. So I guess in a cup car. So I guess that'll be next race. He might add more. But when he's calling a race on an oval, he really doesn't add anything to the table. Logano basically dominated the booth because Jamie Little just is a rollover. I'm not referencing other things. It's just, but the thing is, it's I don't understand what any of that. But then it's Fox. They basically troll the fans with all of this crap. So putting Jamie Little on there they're trying to act like they're good with women, but then they troll people with having her in the booth, and then they go and they don't have enough people on pit road to cover the entire field. So it makes no sense, but then it's Fox. Points, Chandler Smith and Austin Hill. Chandler Smith leads by 1 point over Austin Hill. That's based, I think the stage wins are the reason. Or not, I mean, playoff points wise, Austin Hill has 3 more than Chandler Smith, but they're right there, right next to each other points wise. Cole Custer 3rd, Riley Herbst 4th, Jesse Love 5th, Creed 6th, 20 points separating 3rd through 6th, so the big gap. 33 points separating Custer, or 34 from 1st to 3rd, so big gap so early. Shows what stage points and shows what winning stages means. AJ Allmendinger 7th, Allgaier 8th, Buckshot Jones 9th, Sammy Smith 10th. So those are 3 of the junior motorsports cars. There, Kligerman and Alfredo round out the 12. Ryan Sieg is 2 points out. SVG 7 points out of the playoff as of now. You look at some of the other people that might be possible contender to make the playoff. Parker Retzloff is 16th, but he is 28 points behind Anthony Alfredo at the moment. You have Sam Mayer. Josh mentioned he hasn't had a good finish all year. He's at 47 points, so he's basically 51 points behind Anthony Alfredo at the moment, and he's 150 something points behind the points lead. So it's really about getting a win at some point, which I would figure he will, because he's going to need that. And the same goes for Jeb Burton. Yeah, also JJ Yaley, but that's not going to happen. Jeb Burton, who won last year at Talladega, it's the only way he's going to make the playoffs. Josh Williams, same nightmare scenario. He's tied with Miss Hummer 2.0. The only 2 people that are worse off points wise than Josh Williams and Haley Deegan that have run every race are Patrick Emmerling, who's 3 points behind them, and Dawson Cram, former guest on the GSP, who is dead last amongst the drivers who have run every race. He's 10 points behind Patrick Emmerling. So, that's the points there. 2 weeks will be at COTA. That'll be the next race there. Formula One, we know what happened. It was not worth even paying attention to because, of course, it hasn't been worth paying attention to since. But I mean, we can make it since 21, but there was actually a battle. 22 on has been god awful. When it comes to the comes to this results and all that because of who wins every single fucking week. The Saudi Grand Prix trying to go. I'm trying to get the results. Drivers, 2024 standing. So yeah, the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, Fish Lips won by 13.6 seconds over Perez, 18.6 seconds over Charles Leclerc. What was it? Josh got it right. There with the podium. I, of course, lost my second place person because he had to go and get something going on with his appendix. Oscar Piastri finished fourth, 32 seconds behind Sir Fred Alonso, fifth. George Russell, Ollie Bierman, Lando Norris, Lewis Hamilton, and Nico Hulkenberg round out the top 10. Nico Hulkenberg was nearly 30 seconds nearly 30 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton there. Alex Albon was 11, 12, around 12 seconds behind Hulkenberg, and Magnussen was last car in the lead lap. 2 cars DNF, Pierre Gasly lap 1, Lance Stroll crashed. So the Red Bull, whatever, the AlphaTauris, the AlphaTauris or the Toro Rossos or whatever were buried along with the Kickstart Saubers. Logan Sargent 14th. So yeah, didn't watch, don't really care. Leclerc getting third, Piastri getting a top 5 was good for him. The Mercedes are definitely in trouble. It doesn't seem like whatever changes that they have made have hit. It looks like they're going to have some issues, at least for the next few races, because they're not going to be able to bring like massive upgrades to the car. Probably until May, when I think they go to once they get to I think it probably will be either Miami. I would think Miami would be when they might have a chance to get some upgrades, but it may be even further than that. It might be Imola, which is the middle of May. So that would be another, 4 races before they're able to go and make upgrades, which would be a nightmare scenario for them. But yeah, usual shit. Red Bull 1-2 didn't really miss anything, and I think that's going to be the usual scenario here for this whole entire season.
Maybe we replace Max Verstappen with Snacks Verstappen, the meme where his face is all puffed up because he ate too much food, and we'll see how that guy does. But he probably would win every race too, so that's probably not makes a difference. But yeah, I mean Max wins once again to start the year, and Sergio finished behind him. So Red Bull 1-2, and yeah, I got Leclerc right, so got the right combination there. So if you're looking to make any predictions or act upon them, follow my lead there. I'm not responsible for any any losses there, though. That's on the listener. Um, yeah, Lewis finishing ninth, but he said he still feels positive about it, about the direction of the team this year, despite the result uh, and everything. So that's even though maybe the results aren't as fun, still positive. Wonder if that's just PR trying to end things gracefully this season here at Mercedes versus next year going to Ferrari, which the ride that he's probably going to be taking over finished ahead of him with the guy making a debut this year because the regular guy is out with appendicitis. So get well soon. Carlos Sainz looks like he already is. So that's one storyline there. But at least Ollie Behrman comes in here and finishes in seventh place. So good result for debut F1 race, and certainly showing a lot of talent here already. So yeah, and then Lando led 5 laps. That was only because of the beginning Lance Stroll crash and kind of put things on a different strategy. And he went out and led 5 laps, and then Max passed him shortly after. Yeah, so not a whole lot happened. Yeah, I think we both forgot about the race again. So we'll see. We'll see if we can tune into the next one, which is Australia. Which that one's gonna be another late one. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. We'll see if one of us is actually able to catch one in real time, if it actually interests us enough.
Yeah, you could probably book me for Miami. That might be the next time I watch a race, because I'm not going to stay up to watch this garbage. I refuse. It's good for my health. Actually, it's good for the health. I may not be able to make picks, but I'll say for health purposes and for like positivity, since I did a lot of work. One of the things that's definitely helped with my mood is not watching Formula One at all. It definitely helps my mood, because all the bad feelings I have about people like Fish Lips and Red Fool and One Eyed Marco and Karen Horner and all those other pieces of shit and all his pathetic fan base and all his other whatever, I don't have to think about it. It's Formula One. It's what Formula One always has been, but it's so god awful now. I imagine this is what it would have been when Schumacher won every race, basically. But even when Schumacher was dominating, there were other guys that could win here and there. I was a fan of Damon Hill, unfortunately, and he was able to. I was a fan of Juan Pablo Montoya, and he was able to go out there and win for multiple teams. Like it wasn't like a fait accompli that it was just going to be one driver every single race. I mean, 2004 notwithstanding, but other people were capable here and there depending on circumstances. There's no circumstance outside of a meteor nailing that fish lip fuck and that team that they're ever going to lose. They gave away Singapore last year. The only thing they have to do now is win every race, which they're going to do. Unless, like I said, a meteor happens, somebody decides to shiv him. I don't know, like Sergio Perez poisons him. I don't know. There has to, because everything is becoming like a telenovela or soap opera or whatever. So that's the way Red Fool is. Daniel Ricciardo goes and does like a heel turn and goes and gives Fish Lips a chair shot. Yuki Tsunoda goes and puts him in a figure four. Like this is what Formula One has become now. Now I want it to be the WWE because they call NASCAR like WWE, which it has definite qualities and characteristics of. But the way that Red Fool is doing things, and for as bad as Formula One is now, I want it to become wrestling. I want people to just start like chair shotting the bastard, going and getting fans bring the weapons, things. And no, I don't mean the shit that, they'll do in Saudi. No, I'm not saying that. Definitely not. Or any of these dictator countries. No, I'm not saying that. Hitting Max Verstappen in the face with a light tube, that's okay. He can recover from that. Putting him through a table full of like tacks and nails, it's okay. He's fit. Flaming table, it's fine. Like that kind of stuff. Get some a little crimson mask action. That would be interesting for Crofty to call if he went and like bladed himself in the middle of a race, and then he tells GP like, I can't stop the bleeding, I have to pit or something. Like that would be interesting. That would actually make Formula One more interesting.
If he, how like PT showed up to a kart race like back in the day with the wrestling mask. That's what Max needs to do.
Yeah, I mean he can put whatever Max. His face is a good enough mask that people want to punch it anyway. You go and put a lucha mask on. You can go and he can put on. Well, I'm not going to go there. I could go there. It really doesn't matter considering the listenership, but he probably has at some point in his life too, considering where he comes from and who his dad is. But whatever. I mean, his future brother-in-law is going to be Daniel Suarez, right? So probably Daniel can go and get him a lucha mask, get him a Rey Mysterio mask, or some shit. I think he should go and do Super Crazy or what is it, Juventud Guerrero with the antlers and stuff. Because then all of the other Red Fool drivers can jump on him and try to grab it, and he'd still get away from him by 15 seconds anyway, like he does in a car. Whatever. Just seriously, just end this season already. I want to get to 2025 when Lewis is in a Ferrari. That's what I'm waiting for at this point. I could care less anymore about this season. Points wise, leading in Australia, Fish Lips is up by 15 points on Perez. Perez is up by 8 on Charlie Leclerc. Russell, Piastri, Sainz, Alonso, Norris, and Lewis Hamilton, and Ollie Bierman rounds out the top 10. And if I'm anybody behind Ollie Bierman, I'm wondering about my job. I'm wondering about what I'm doing. When a kid literally had 1 hour of practice, a qualifying session, got to Q2 and was very close to making Q3, and it is his first Grand Prix, and he's already he's outscored I don't know how many of these guys. I figure Haas is probably going to hire him for next year, so I guess that'll be the battle to see who's going to not get fired by Haas. So Kevin Magnussen and Nico Hulkenberg are definitely going to have to battle. They're good friends and all, but one of them is going to be losing their seat for Ollie Bierman probably. I mean, ironically enough, Ollie Bierman doesn't have any points, at least the last time I checked in Formula 2. So he has more points in Formula 1 than he does in Formula 2, which is weird. But see what happens there. In terms of the constructors, Red Fool has a 38-point lead on Ferrari. Ferrari has a 21-point lead on McLaren. McLaren and Mercedes are close. They're only 2 points. Three Mercedes-powered teams take up spots 3 through 5. And then Haas is 6th right now. Williams, because of the 12th place finish for Alex Albon, is 7th. Kickstart and a beauty is 8th. V-Carb 9th, and Alpine rounding out the 10 teams. And somebody explained to me again that Michael Andretti and Andretti Global doesn't bring any value, right? And Alpine, V-Carb, Kick Save, and Kick Start, and whatever the fuck. And then, no offense, but Williams, in the form that they've been in basically since the mid 2000s, sans I think 2 years, and Haas. You're telling me any of those teams bring anything to the table? Go fuck yourself, really. Like, unbelievable. And then that dipshit who runs the FIA is a scumbag too. You know, like, you have Karen Horner's a scumbag, and then that Ben Suliam piece of shit. There's always controversy around him. I mean, you'd probably bank on him having someone knocked off too, like Putin, you know, like the way he is. So, I mean, I don't know. It's unbelievable. Fucking can't stand Formula One. It's a waste. All right, getting a roundup here. I'm getting running short on time for my own sake. We're getting there. So, roundup F2 and F1 Academy. So Formula 2 was, of course, at Saudi to go. Yeah, Villa Gomez, good for him. Kush Miney, oh, he got a podium. Look at that. The winners, the sprint race was Dennis Hauger and Enzo Fittipaldi. Keeping up the family name. His brother struggled in IndyCar, but he ended up winning the feature race there, so credit to him. The results there, so we'll go through it. In the sprint race, Dennis Hauger over Paul Aaron and Enzo Fittipaldi was a podium. Zane Maloney, Jack Crawford, 5th. Anton Kimi Antonelli, goddamn, look at that dress on friggin' Kira K. Dixon. Shit. Sorry. Pepe Marti, Kushmini, Durksen, and Bortoletto round out the top 10. Ryoma Miata, the Japanese Super GT champion, or not Super GT champion, the Super Formula champion, just outside of the top 10 there. I'm trying to see if there's any of the other Americans there. No. And then in the feature race, Enzo Fittipaldi over Kushmini, who finished 2nd. Dennis Hauger finished 3rd. Jack Crawford just outside of the podium there in 4th. Cordial rounds out the top 5. Antonelli, after a bad weekend at Bahrain, ends up going and getting a solid weekend. Maloney, after getting his double win, got good points. At Bahrain, got good points at Saudi. Vayshore, Villa Gomez, and Paul Aaron round out the top 10. Juan Manuel Correa's 14th. Miata 15th there. Standings heading to Australia. Zane Maloney's got a 15-point lead over Enzo Fittipaldi. Dennis Hauger, who has scored points in every round so far, or every race so far, is in 3rd. Paul Aaron 4th. Kushmini 5th. Pepe Marti 6th. Crawford 7th. Those, what is it, from 2nd to 7th is 8 points. So good battle there. Bortoletto, Zach O'Sullivan, Anton Kimi Antonelli rounding out the top 10. Right now, Ollie Bierman is dead last in Formula 2 points, one of 6 drivers who hasn't scored a point yet through 4 rounds. It shows like he didn't even race in either race, so I don't know what happened there. In terms of F1 Academy, it was Dorian Pan, the Mercedes representative for the F1 Academy. She won both races, but they came up with some god awful penalty because she ended up taking an extra lap around, and they penalized her 20 seconds for whatever reason. So that screwed her over. But Dorian Penn over Abby Pulling and Woog, whatever, I don't know, Chloe Chambers, Bianca Bustamante rounding out the top 5. Leah Block DNF'd in the first race there. And then in race 2, it was Abby Pulling over Woog, Neri Marti, Jessica Edgar, Hamda Al-Khabaisi, Bianca Bustamante, Schreiner, Amna Al-Khabaisi. Dorian Pan went from 1st to 9th with that penalty, and Chloe Chambers rounding out the top 10. Leah Block just outside of the points there in 11th. So the next race for them will be in 2 months' time in Miami. The standings leading into that second round, Pulling with an 11-point lead on Woog. Pan a further point behind that, so 12 points behind. She should have gotten both wins. She had an even bigger lead. Bustamante, Marti, round out the top 5. Chloe Chambers in 6th. Leah Block is one of only 3 drivers that didn't get a point this past weekend, so we'll see if she can take care of that in Miami. Then next thing we'll do is the Gator Nationals to open the 2024 NHRA season. The Coletta Racing team gets the double to start 2024. Sean Langdon with the new tuner, and Brian Houston gets the win in Top Fuel with the 335.4 miles an hour. J.R. Todd gets the win in Funny Car. Eric Anders in Pro Stock. Gage Herrera, freaking always seems to win ever since he started. They're focusing on a new national event planned for 24. Dragon. So they're gonna have one less race, I guess. That's what that is. All right. And then Jose Gonzalez won in Pro Mod. Sean Langdon beat Cody Crone, Justin Ashley, Antron Brown on his way to the final, and then beat Billy Torrance in the final. Billy Torrance beat his son in the semifinals. Mike Salinas in the second round, and Brittany Force in the first round. There in Funny Car, J.R. Todd, I mentioned, won the race. He beat J.R. Todd, ended up coming from the number 6 spot, beats Blake Alexander, Ron Capps, who red lit, and Bob Tasca, before beating Austin Prock, who was making his Funny Car debut, driving the car for Robert Height. So Austin Prock driving with his dad and brother tuning on the car, qualified number 1, got through first round, beat his car owner, of course, John Force, and Chad Green on his way to the final, but ends up losing. Defending series champion Matt Hagan lost to Chad Green in the second round. I forgot to mention, of course, in Top Fuel, Tony Stewart lost to Justin Ashley in the first round, even though he had a good light, a 021 light. But he smoked the tires, and both of them smoked the tires, but Justin Ashley, the more experienced driver, was able to get back on it and get in. He had the best reaction time of the weekend for credit to Smoke on that one. The January 6th in Pro Stock goes from the number one spot, beats Kelly Murphy, her teammate Aaron Stanfield, Greg Anderson, ran a 648 with or just under 212, and then essentially matched it just over a second, but or a hundredth slower, but same kind of speed. Christian Quadra dumped his ass on the starting line conveniently because they get their equipment from Elite Motorsports. Quadra was the number 2 qualifier, beat Larry Morgan, Jed Coughlin Jr., and Dallas Glenn on his way to the final. So that was Pro Stock, and Gage Herrera starts off his campaign to keep his Pro Stock motorcycle title after destroying the field last year. Went from the number 1 spot, beat Joy Gladstone, John Hall, and Angie Smith, making her comeback from the awful injury she suffered at Brainerd. Is able to get back and get to the semifinals, and then Gage beat her husband, Matt Smith, the multi-time champion, in the final. Matt Smith went from the number 2 spot, beat Chris Bostic, Mark Ingerson, and Ellie Tonglet on his way to the final there. Next race for the NHRA will be the Winter Nationals in 2 weeks' time at Pomona, before they go and wait another 2 weeks and go to Firebird in Arizona. The Indy Next at St. Pete was Nolan Siegel getting the win there at St. Petersburg for Indy Next. Commanding victory. So that gets the first win of the season. Next race will be at Baba. HMD Motorsports leads every lap. From pole, it was thought that he might get a chance at IndyCar this year, but instead he stays in Indy Lights. Siegel over Jacob Abel, Louis Foster, Michael D'Orlando rookie, Reese Gold are the top 5. Jonathan Brown, Caio Colette, Miles Rowe, who started 3rd, Salvador D'Alba and Christian Bogle round out the top 10. Yuvan Sundaramurthy started 13th, finished 12th. Miss Hummer 3.0 finished 15th. Jack William Miller, so Jack Miller's son, with Adam Vinatieri owning that team, finished 18th, so like father, like son. Jamie Chadwick was the last car running in 20th out of 21 cars, so, and she started 10th, so must have had an issue with someone there early in the race, so doesn't show anything about contact or show anything about so must have been, or may have had a mechanical of some sort. So that is Indy Next. So their next race, as I said, will be Barber. They'll have a doubleheader there at the end of April, it looks like. The Daytona 200 used to be one of the biggest races and used to have multiple there used to be a GP, the Grand Prix riders, and World Superbike riders would come over, but now it's a 600 Super Sport race. And in the end, the winner, the results of the Daytona 200 they're showing from last year. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for last year's. They got this is what a great website, guys. This is supposed to be like all right, so here comes the anchor, because or their cycle news. Thank you. Problem stack fields, but in the end, current master, Josh Herrin. 2/3 race on his own after the first round of pit stops. To some 5 seconds better than the rest of the field. 10.7 second gap to Richie Escalante. A massive fuel spill in the pits that didn't hamper his progress, but Mexican couldn't pull over Herrin. Actually ran out of fuel heading into wow. That's crazy. Ran out of fuel and still was okay. Trying to see, so they don't, the results of the Daytona 200, do they have it down there? Let's see. Scrolling, of course. Daytona time attack. Oh, Tyler Scott will be on the pole. Okay. And King of the Baggers race 1 was Kyle Wyman, Super Julian, Troy Herfoss, and David and Travis. Twins Cup, I don't know who that is. The first round is our rookie. But when Dustin is Kyle Wyman, we're 2 wins out of 3. Oh, okay. All right, so Kyle Wyman, AK, one of the luckiest men on the planet. So that was. So Hayden trying to take a surprise podium in 3rd. And so it was Danny Eslick, Josh Herrin. Sorry, Danny Eslick is another multi-time winner of the Daytona 200. Pole sitter. It was Tyler Scott. Is that Tyler Scott and hard Popo, and Imagine made it to the flag, but Tyler Scott second, Hayden Gillum, and Bobby Fong. So that was second, third, fourth, and 5th place for Richie Escalante. DQ'd. So Escalante gets back up to 4th, even though DQ'd. Race 4th. 5th was some Czech rider, endurance world champion, Yamaha Austria. Okay. 2-time champion Brandon Pash, and then the last rider not to be lapped by Herrin. 7th race, Amo Maith, Ben Young, Josh Hayes, Yavi Flores finished lap 2 for the 2nd year in a row. Oh, he was riding for Yamaha this time. All right. So that's that. For Supercross, as I mentioned, it's become a battle for need that. I'm trying in 450s. Oh, well, yeah. In 450s, the official results of the main event. They raced in Birmingham this past weekend. The official results, the 450 main event, Jet Lawrence gets another victory, leads every lap, gets the whole shot, wins over Cooper Webb, Ken Roczen, Chase Sexton, Justin Cooper round out your top five. Jason Anderson, Eli Tomac, Aaron Plessinger, Justin Barsha, and Malcolm Stewart round out the top 10. And then the 250 main event is 250 East. Tom Vial over Cameron McAdoo, Seth Hammaker, Pierce Brown, Jeremy Martin, Jalek Swoll, Daxton Bennick, Cody Schock, Hayden Deegan, and Chance Hymas round out the top 10. The standings in 450s, Jet Lawrence has a 13-point lead over Cooper Webb, 20 on Chase Sexton. Eli Tomac is 26 points behind, so just over a full race. Ken Roczen, Jason Anderson, Aaron Plessinger, Justin Cooper, Dylan Ferrandis, and Justin Barsha rounding out your top 10. 250 East, Tom Vial has a 1-point lead over Cameron McAdoo, 4-5 over Pierce Brown. Hayden Deegan, Cody Schock are tied 12 points back, 4th and 5th. Hammaker and Bennick tied for 6th, 15 points back. Anstey, Henry Miller, looks like he doesn't have a ride. And Jalek Swoll, who's riding for Triumph, round out the top 10. Next race on the schedule will be Indianapolis this weekend, which will be part of the East series, and it'll be a Triple Crown weekend. So we'll see what happens. And they'll be going to Seattle, St. Louis, Foxborough here the next 3 weeks. And then Nashville, which will be in Nissan Stadium for those mayonnaise-eating bastards, as Josh called them, the Tennessee Titan man. So that's one of the greatest lines ever. But yeah, so that's Supercross. Looks like Jet Lawrence is going to win that championship. Cadillac announced that they're going to leave Chip Ganassi Racing, and which is huge news for IMSA, considering, and also for World Endurance Championship, because they are represented in both championships there. The initial takeaways, I think, from Pruitt are that Action Express will expand, which will mean that they'll probably do the same thing. They'll run one car in the US, and then they'll run one car in the WEC, which, I mean, makes a lot of sense, because they've been connected to GM and Cadillac and everything for many, many years. So it wouldn't be all that surprising if that's what ends up happening. We'll see what happens, though. 12 Hours of Sebring. You're going to have, you have the Carrera Cup, you have Lamborghini Super Trofeo, Michelin Pilot Challenge, and the MX-5 Cup. The 12 Hours of Sebring, though, will have how many cars? It doesn't even... 24. Yeah,
Something
24,
like that.
34, 36. Yeah, 58. Thank you. So big field, a lot of traffic is going to be out there. In terms of, there you go. I could have gotten it if I'd actually clicked on the entry list. 11 cars in GTP. As I mentioned, the Iron Lynx Lamborghini is going to make their debut in the US. Matteo Carioli, Andrea Calderari, and Romain Grosjean You have Porsches, of course, the factory Porsches from Penske, number 6 and number 7. The number 7 that won the Rolex 24. Then you have the Mustang sampling Proton competition, number 5 for Bruni, Picarello, and Andlauer. And then the number 85 JDC Miller car with Vanderhelm, Westbrook, and Phil Hansen. The 2 Wayne Taylor cars, the 10 and the 40. 2 BMWs, number 24 and 25. The 31 from Whelen Engineering. They've had good luck at Sebring over the years. Pippo Durrani, Jack Aiken, Tom Blomqvist, coming off of racing first race of the season at IndyCar, going and jumping into GTP car this coming weekend. Go and look through anybody else there. Harley Farfus, yeah, that's the only one. Colton Herta actually will be in the Wayne Taylor Dex Imaging car with a regular duo of Jordan Taylor and Louis Delatraz. In LMP2, they have 13 entries. The United Autosports USA wins car with Ben Keating, Ben Hanley, Nico Pino. You have others here. You have Gar Robinson, the 74. George Kurtz-Collenbraun, the CrowdStrike car. John Ferrano, Michael Dinan, the Tower Motorsports, Mikkel Jensen, Hunter McElroy, and TDS Racing, Dwight Merriman, Connor Zilch, and Ryan Dial for Era Motorsports. Yep, Daniel Goldberg and Bejoy Garg for United Autosports USA with Paul DeResta. Sean Creek Racing with Wilsey, João Barbosa, and Johnny Edgar. And João Barbosa got good for him. The Richard Mille AF Corsa team. Then you have the AO Racing, Matty Brabham, PJ Hyatt, and Paul Chatin. In terms of GT Pro, 12 cars. The Paul Miller Racing BMW. The Corvette, Pratt Miller Corvettes, number 3 and number 4. Then the Pfaff Motorsports McLaren with Hinch driving as part of that driver lineup. Vassar Sullivan Lexus, which will have Kyle Kirkwood. Got the Iron Lynx Lamborghini Huracan, Harder Racing Aston Martin, another Iron Lynx Huracan number 60. Ferrari Risi Competizione Ferrari. Then the 2 Mustangs from Multimatic Ford Performance. And then the AO Racing Porsche. GT Daytona, the biggest class 22 cars. We have the Lexus. Then you have the 2 AWA Corvettes. AF Corsa, I think they have two cars, or no, they have 1 car. MDK Motorsports, yeah. Klaus Bachler's in that car. Okay, Wright Motorsports driving the number 120 that was being used in the Brad Pitt movie. What is it? The Turner Motorsports BMW. Mercedes there. You got the Lamborghini Forte Racing Inception with their McLaren. Spina Monk, Catherine Legg, Tatiana Calderon for Gradient Racing. Then Windward Racing, Mercedes, a Proton Competition Ford with Corey Lewis and Ryan Hardwick. And the Wayne Taylor Racing with Andretti. So I guess the Doyle, that's Doyle's kid, Dan Doyle's kid, who's driving there. Magnus Racing, Aston Martin, Andretti Motorsports with the Porsche, with Jared Andretti, Gabby Chauvin, Scott Hargrove. Korthoff, Preston Motorsports, Mercedes, Mike Skeen, Mikhail Grenier, Kenton Koch. Then you have the Hard Racing Aston Martin, other Ferrari there. Yeah, so deep field in GT Daytona for sure. So something to look at. The Lexus team, interesting run for them last time. So we'll see. Of course, the Iron Dames are there. With Rahel Frey, Michelle Gadding, and Sarah Bovey. So we'll see how they do this weekend. Yeah, so let's preview Bristol. It'll be back on the concrete, racing in the spring for the first time in a few years. What is it? Kevin Harvick mentioned it, that it's like they're punking him because they went back to the concrete at Bristol, which he was comfortable on, and then they also are going back for the Brickyard 400 and on the oval. So interesting how that all worked out. We'll go first with the Truck Series Weather Guard Truck Race, 36 for 36. So nobody's going home as it stands, because there's nobody else getting put in. Mason Maggio has got Carl Long as his crew chief. Floridian Motorsports. What is it? Mason Massey the Fourth. Lovely. William Sawalich driving for Tricon. Kyle Busch in the 7 for Spire. Trey Hudgens making one of his limited appearances. Keith McGee in the 22 for Rayum. I think everybody else is basically what the usual. Bailey Curry, Matt Mills, Caden Honeycutt's in the 45. Connor Jones racing one of his limited starts. Of course, Rajah Caruth coming off of his win at Vegas. Stephen Parsons driving for Henderson Motorsports. It's their home game there. Terry Carroll Motorsports doesn't have a driver, probably will be him. Zane Smith driving for McAnally Hilgeman. And yeah, so have to go and look back in the picks. You picked first. And then, yeah, first. Thing. So, yeah, I'll go and pick first for the trucks. Spire Motorsports has won every race so far this year. And that'll continue because Kyle Busch will go and win. Because why not? It's a Truck Series race and Kyle Busch is in it. So I'm going to go chalk. My wild card pick is a wild card pick because the fact is of how bad his season has started. I'm going to go with Lane Riggs because the fact is he needs to have a good run at some point. So I would assume that it finally turns around for him. The Cup Series team is doing really well. So you would think that it would turn around for them. But we'll see what happens with that. I'll go. So yeah, as I said, Kyle Busch to win, and Lane Riggs wild card. What say you, Josh?
Still my pick there, but that's fine. For me, I'll go with. I will go with Corey Heim winning this weekend in the Truck Series. And my wild card will be William Sawalich making his first start here in the Truck Series 2024. So, Yeah, he's been pretty good, so I like him as a pick here this weekend as my wild card.
So going full Tricon Garage there with the picks. But, I mean, Corey Heim is a solid pick. I mean, he was a regular season champion, so somebody that would be pretty safe, I would say, to pick there. The Cup Series, it's the Food City 500 back. They have the old red and white checkered type wall that they used to have for many years. 36 for 36. We have Bush Light Fishing on Chastain's car. Discount tire for Gumby. Brestry for Bald Spot. Sunny D back on the 4 car for Josh Berry. Brad Keselowski with King's Hawaiian. Gainbridge for Corey LaJoy. FICO, whatever that is, for Kyle Busch. Bass Pro tracker and ranger boats for Gagson. Mavis Express oil change for Dennis Hamlin. Menards and Dutch Boy for Blaney. Briscoe with Mahindra. Kaz Gralla racing again for Rick Ware. AJ Allmendinger driving a Mountain Dew and Cheetos number 16. That's quite a combination. If you are either preggers or if you're trying to go to the hospital. Christopher Busher built submarines. Auto owners insurance for Martin Truex. DeWalt for Christopher Bell. Dex Imaging for Harrison Burton. Joey Logano back with his usual Shell Pennzoil. Lidos for Darrell Walsh Jr. William Byron Liberty University. Daniel Hemrick with Circle. Michael McDowell loves travel stops. Sitgard for Todd Gilliland. Haas tooling back on the 41 for Priest. Dollar Tree for John Hunter Nemechek. Advent Health for That Jones Boy. Monster Energy for Tyler Reddick. Ballpark Buns and Rolls for A. Richard. Alex Bowman with Ally. Ohanify, whatever the hell that is, for Justin Haley. Ty Gibbs with Sirius XM. Focused Health for Zane Smith. Gainbridge, Cal Ripken Senior Foundation. Okay. Interesting. On Carson Osavar's car, so maybe the Baltimore Orioles colors. And then Suarez has Jockey Outdoors by Luke Bryan and the Bassmasters Classic. So that's going to be an interesting car to look at. I had the first pick in trucks. You get the first pick in Cup, Josh. So who are you looking at to win the Bristol day race on concrete for the first time in a few years?
Guy that retired the phrase "I beat your favorite driver" in Denny Hamlin. Pick him to repeat from last fall and go out and win here at Bristol this weekend, and maybe he'll utter out a new phrase when he gets out of the car and wins. So I'll pick Denny Hamlin. Wild card. Well, I mean, yeah, I'm gonna go with Noah Gragson as a wild card. He's been doing well the past couple of weeks, and it makes sense. Let's see what he can do here for short track, true short track race of the year. I don't consider Phoenix to be a true short track anymore, but he's been doing really good this past couple of races. So let's see what he can do here at Bristol.
Yeah, Gagson's going to be a solid wild card pick for a while because his points are so low. I mean, that's pretty solid. And I mean, Dennis Hamlin, he's pretty darn good at Bristol. For me, it's an interesting one. Hmm. I am going to go with. I'm going to go with Christopher Bell to go back to back. Yeah, he won on dirt at Bristol, but he's been solid on the concrete as well. So I think that Christopher Bell goes and gets two consecutive wins. Chris Bell to get some good momentum early in the season, him and Adam Stevens. In terms of a wild card selection, for me, I'll go with Mr. Mid himself, Corey LaJoie. It's one of his better racetracks. He's had some good finishes there over the years. So, Spire Motorsports, I think they've shown progress at times this year. So the speed was there for Carson Osavar. So I think this is an opportunity for Corey LaJoie to get a decent finish at Bristol and get his season going, essentially. I mean, I don't really remember where he is in points, but I mean, does many people even try? But he does have a podcast, and he does have his good friend and full-time pit road guy for Ryan Blaney and part-time race car driver Skip Flores as his co-host. So he does a good job. All right, Josh, your time to shine here. Here with your sim segment. Let us know how the rain was on iRacing and anything else going on in the world of the Sims.
Yeah, I mean, iRacing in the rain is very challenging. So to say, I mean, it was a lot of wrecking, a lot of spin outs, brakes locking up in corner entry, a lot of hitting the
Can't hear
puddle.
you.
Can you hear me? Oh, I'm muted. That's why. But anyway, though, yeah, a lot of spin outs, a lot of hitting a puddle and going through it, overspray galore. Maybe too much overspray. It looks like they may be addressing that, reducing the visibility or lack of visibility because of the overspray. It's very hard when you're following a car to even see where you're going, and you have to almost offset your car. If you're behind somebody, you have to offset by a few uh, inches to the left or to the right to try to see where you're going for the next corner. So maybe they'll update that. But yeah, I mean, went through a lot of tracks. Brands Hatch, they had a lot of races on there to start out with at the beginning of the week. So ran some on there. Heavy rain throughout. A lot of spin outs, a lot of stuff trying to offset. In the corners, going where it was finding a dry line. It's definitely a lot of challenging. There ran, I think a Misano ran with the Ferrari GT3 there, which it didn't rain at first, but then the crew chief said rain is coming, and next lap rain started coming, and I had an opportunity. I think when it first started getting a little moist to go out and uh, pit and put on the rain tires, but then I waited and feel like if I would have pitted, there's the strategy aspect of this, trying to time it right with getting the rain tires on and then making up the time, or going back to the dry tires and making up the time that way. So starting to see the intricacies of making the decisions of when to come and change the get the wet tires on to go out and make up as much time as you can. So that was pretty interesting there. Ran the GTPs at Road America in the rain and at Spa, and that was quite a challenge. Which I don't. Yeah, I think in every race that I ran, I think everybody that ran GTP quit at some point. They said to hell with it because it was too hard. And I think the was the other race or the other series or class that was with us in GTP was the I think LMP2, so the Dallara P17, I think, or P217 in there as well, and those guys finished, but all the guys in the GTP class ended up crashing out at some point at Road America and then at Spa. So yeah, it was very challenging. Yeah, I mean, you have to adjust your brake bias to more towards the rear, um, so that you have rear brake when you go into a corner when it's wet. You have to, obviously go where there's no puddles. Take the uh, outside line into a corner, usually where all the water's sitting at on the inside on the curbing, so can't really hit that, or else you'll hydroplane. That was definitely an experience there. Losing the brakes, locking up into a corner and spitting out is definitely an issue. So you can't use in addition to the rear brakes, turning the bias towards that. You also can't just like slam on the brakes, or else you'll immediately lock up and spin out. So definitely had a lot of those experiences on the sim. So yeah, credit iRacing. I mean, they rolled out a really good update there. Um, it was definitely a lot of fun. Definitely had a lot of laughs, of course. So I think I streamed one of them because I was just trying to get the feel of it. So streamed one of them, go on there and watch that. Of course, but uh, yeah, it was a lot of fun trying this out. So hopefully, they continue to roll it out. Hopefully, they roll it out with more cars. Right now they had GR86, the GT3 cars, Porsche. I think GT3 Cup. I think is on the next of cars that they should put in this upgrade for. The F1 cars need it. Indy cars need it. Yeah, GTP already has it, so a lot of IMSA cars already have this tire. So they're slowly rolling it out, for the cars based on participation and based on difficulty of the car itself. So looking forward to seeing how this plays out. But it was a lot of fun to be able to go out and do this and go out and have weather affect it. Thought that it would take a massive hit in terms of performance for frames, but it didn't really impact the frame rate too much. I mean, there were some parts where it did, but you were able to manage and get through it. So where it wasn't too much of an impact, where playing the game was impossible. So yeah, definitely a good experience there, and looking forward to playing in some real official races where strategy is going to have to come into play with regards to tire decision for wet or dry there. So definitely a good time there. I mean, even Max Verstappen. So he won the race in F1 this past weekend, but then somebody found out that his Discord is online. Literally, I guess they're in a server with um Verstappen, and it literally says Max Verstappen playing iRacing.com simulator. So maybe he's returning to his day job now that the rain update has come out. So his weekend job's winning F1 race, and his real job is actually being a top tier level sim racer for Team Redline there. So yeah, Verstappen winning in, or racing and winning in everything, I guess. So but that was pretty funny too. So yeah, we'll be looking forward to getting more into that later. And it would be kind of funny if they did NASCAR uh in the rain for the road courses, at least in the short tracks, which is currently how the rules are. Uh, but wonder how that will go. Because I'm sure that's just another disaster waiting to happen. Of course, on iRacing with the skill level of people in ovals with the experience